happy birthday. We're going to toast it up to you. We
Oh,
do this
he
for
is.
everyone here on the pod, except for Hans. We didn't do anything for Hans because,
Yeah, we didn't do anything for me because,
for reasons.
yeah. But Lou, I want to toast you, brother. We've been, over a quarter of a century deep, brother. You have been a blessing to me. Shut up, Christian. You've been a blessing to me, man. Always been a solid foundation, a great support of whatever I'm doing. Also not afraid to tell me if I've misstepped or should reconsider stepping in any way, brother. And I pray that the Lord continues to bless you richly, man. Happy birthday from me, from everybody here. We love you, bro. And I want to continue to see you thrive, brother.
No doubt, no doubt.
Happy birthday, man.
Appreciate it, Cuzzo, man. Appreciate it, Cuzzo. Appreciate it.
I know I'm not on the screen, but I have a drink up for you, Lou. Just wanted to let you know.
My guy, I appreciate you, family.
It's water, but it's something.
I was about to say it's Deer Park. It's water.
Lou the thrill. Lou, you know what to do. A brother of Hans is a brother of mine because that's my brother. And from the moment we met, from the moments we first spoke, it's been nothing but love. You came up to me first time I met you, gave you a big hug. I was like, hey, this dude bigger than I realized. This whole cat, man. But it's been love from the jump. Gave me my first taste of Ace of Spades. I appreciate you. Shout out to, shout out to Hans for getting married. And just outside of that, man, I got to say, you are the reason that went down the direction of this podcast. Me and Hans been talking sports for a long time. But my boy Lou texted me out the blue one day with just some Carmelo Anthony slander. And we started going back and forth for like 3 weeks, right?
I'll never forget that. I was like, these guys.
Yeah. Right. It was just me and him back and forth for like 3 weeks.
Like, I'm staying out of this. I pulled a J. Cole real quick. I said, hey, ain't got nothing to do with me.
And in the middle of that conversation one night, I said, we should do a podcast with this. And here we are today. And so I appreciate you for that. I appreciate you, man, just for accepting me as a friend, as a brother, and being my guy from the first time we spoke. And I wish you not only a great day, not only a great year, many great years to come, and a lifetime of happiness to you, man. I'm happy to know you. Look forward to continue building this friendship.
Happy birthday, Lou.
Big love, respect.
Happy birthday,
big love,
brother.
family. Big love, family.
I think the definition of greatness is to inspire the people next to you. It's not something that lives and dies with one person. It's how can you inspire a person to then in turn inspire another person that then inspires another person. And that's how you create something that I think lasts forever. And I think that's our challenge as people, is to figure out how our story can impact others and motivate them in a way to create their own greatness.
Welcome to the... Welcome to the 303 podcast. I'm your guy, Hans, here with my main man, Ev. What's up, Ev? How you doing today?
I'm still standing. I'm still strong.
Yes, sir. Back fresh from the NYC, the Great Apple. Glad you're back. Glad you're back. Sir. And also have my other main man here, birthday boy, Lou. What it do, Lou?
What's good? What's good? Peace, love, and harmony, folks. You already know. You already know.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Glad to see you're safe. We know them storms have been hitting your location with hail, power outages, and so much more.
Tornado.
Yeah, you haven't had the pleasure and glory of seeing a tornado, but maybe that'll happen soon for you. So, we're holding out hope for that, for you to see that. As always, y'all, we have the pod mamba in the background on the bench, making sure that we're on point to deliver the best basketball podcast on earth. I said it, Earth. But let's just jump right into it, guys. Get your brooms out. You guys are never prepared. Ever. You just never prepared when a sweep occurs. Okay, this will just be my gimmick now. It'll be my thing. Whenever a sweep happens, I will bring out my Swiffer to let the people know that a sweep occurred. Because clearly my backup my homies are not with me on this.
It's the joy of seeing this used dirty Swiffer that
means we get work. We get work done in this house. Okay?
I see that. I see
we
that.
get work done in this house. If it was clean, there'd be a problem. Okay.
And what's funny is knowing what I know. I mean, you have 2 dirty used Swiffers, but keep going.
This guy, this guy, man. Anywho, Boston has swept the Indiana Pacers. It is over. Indiana is going fishing. And the Boston Celtics have made it to the NBA Finals once again. There's so much to dissect here, but first and foremost, before we get on the Boston angle, because that's where I think a lot of the conversation is going to be held. That's where the media's parts are. Let's talk about Indiana. In the grand scheme of things, I'll start with you, Ev. Is it not still a successful season for the Indiana Pacers? Even though they were swept in the conference finals, should they not view this as a successful season?
Why are you starting with me? You know I'm fresh from the streets of New York. Spent some time in the boogie down, ate some good food in Manhattan, you know, stepped my foot in Queens for a second or two.
And sorry to hear that.
And just for a second or two, that's where the airport is. But anywho, I say all that to say, you know, the New Yorker in me wants to say that was a waste of a finals appearance by the Indiana Pacers. They could have just gave us that game 7 if they were going to get swept like that.
Wow.
But I got that out
fashion.
I got that out of my system. To your point, yes, a very successful year for them. Nobody expected them to be in the Eastern Conference Finals. Most folks expected them to be a playing team coming into this season. I got to give them credit for gelling at the beginning of the season, for playing a fast-paced brand of basketball, forging an identity, for making an excellent trade for Pascal Siakam before the trade deadline, who added to their identity, gave them even more playoff confidence, right? A proven scorer. And although they lost all 4 games, they were in all 4 games, had a chance to win all 4 games, should have won game 1. Some folks are more mad at Pascal for not putting up his hands than I am. I called it seeing what Shea Gilly got called for on a foul on the night or two prior, well, you know, series prior, and trying to stay out of that situation. But I think losing game 1 really just broke them from a confidence standpoint in the clutch.
Yeah, I can see that.
Had they won that game, I think it would have been a much more. Oh, I think the series still would be going on. But with that said, you've got the core of your team intact. No major free agents going into next season. Halliburton's on a contract. Well, they're expected to offer Pascal Siakam the max this summer. I'm pretty sure that trade was made with the understanding that he would be there next year.
Yeah.
So you've created an identity that you can carry over into the next season. So if you're the Indiana Pacers, you have to look at this as, hey, we've built something that we can stand on and continue to grow on. And so as from that standpoint, I think the Pacers have to be very happy with how this season played out for them.
I will 100% agree with you on everything, but especially that game 1. I felt like that was such a heart-wrenching loss for them. And that's also when they lost Halliburton, you know, not too long after. So it was just like, how much could they take? You know, how many more hits could they take as a, you know, up-and-coming team? But I will commend them for making every game competitive to the last second, to the last, you know, the last few minutes, even though, you know, they weren't successful. Lou, I know Ev touched on it a little bit in terms of the contract, what they have set up. Do you think that Indiana needs to do much retooling in order to be more successful next year? Or what opportunities do they have?
Yeah, so I think right now what a team like Indiana is going to probably look to do is add that one more piece that they may need, because I think right now they might be one piece away. They should be very proud of what they did. You knocked off 2 teams that we expected to be in this conference finals or to even be in the NBA finals. But and you have in the young star in Halliburton. Siakam was a great pickup, but I do think they're probably one more piece away. And it may not necessarily be another superstar, right? But I definitely think they probably could use another piece. I mean, look, Nimbar has been looking great. TJ McConnell, the surge of him and his play has been great as well. So they've had guys really come and step up, right? But
Evan's reliving it. Evan's having flashbacks, man. You're
this man
triggering him,
missed
man.
a shot for a week and a half, and then this is a wide open layup in game 4, uncontested layup in the finals. Get out of here, man. Get out of here. I'm sorry, Lou. Continue.
You're triggering my man here, Lou.
I know, man. Oh, man. But, look, I mean, it's going to be even worse with me saying something like this, but if they get a guy like Black Isaiah, a player like that, I think, another solid piece, and then they could really put themselves in a position for making another deep run like they did this season. We didn't expect it. We didn't even consider this more of a Cinderella story, but they have all the bones and makings for a team that can be successful for the next 4 or 5 years with the core that they have. It's just really about finding that one more piece and to really be able to get them to be a championship contending team. Because as they stand right now, I don't believe they're a championship contending team. But to be able to get as far as they did right now, I think it is great for their organization.
100%. They are right there. They're right there. They're on the cups of it, and they're looking like they're going to be around for a bit too. I don't see them as a team that is just built for, 1 or 2 years. They really have some solid pieces there. And I'm going to be very curious to see what tooling that they do, because McCollum, Neymar, like those are solid pieces to hold your team. Matter of fact, the first 2 games, that bench that they have, man, that's what gets them back into the game with Boston.
Absolutely.
Because once Boston goes to their bench, that's when the lead is either expanded or Boston's hold on the game is just reverse, or the momentum shifts. It's always Philly's bench because their bench is so solid and they produce. So they really are right there. So I'm interested to see what happens next. I agree with Ev. I think that Siakam thing was bound to happen. It didn't seem like it was going to be a 1-year rental kind of situation. So he's a great fit there. He makes things easier for Halliburton as well too. Offensively, he's not dependent to, get him out of that stagnation all the time. He can throw it to Siakam on the post and he'll do his little patented spin move that I don't know why it still gets people in the NBA, but do what you do.
Look,
you got your
even
move.
the big play, we've seen this even on larger conversations. So even on the cast from TMT, where these guys are talking about Siakam and his one combo.
His one spin move, man.
Combo. You know what I mean? But no, but also meant to be real. It works. Halliburton doesn't want to be a primary scorer. We see that. And yes, he can push himself to turn it on, but that's not his natural state. He would much rather be a facilitator. So if they can get another piece that can be someone who can also shoulder that offensive ability, then I think that, they're in prime position for real.
And so you touch on one of 2 things that I think internal growth from their standpoint that'll be big for them this offseason. What we saw from Halliburton was the best and worst from him especially after about December, January. Now, I know he was dealing with injuries throughout the season, but we saw at times his unwillingness to attack the basket, his unwillingness to try to finish at the basket. That's going to be something that's going to be key for him the next step of his development. Looking for the contact, gaining the contact, finishing at the rim and getting to the free throw line more. That's going to be the next step of him developing as a lead guard for this team. And then bigger than that, their closing identity. They're a great front running team, okay? If they get you snowballing and they get up 10, 15, 20, yeah, they're great. They're great at that. But what is their identity when it's a 2-point game with a minute and a half to go, right? What is their bread and butter at that time? They still haven't firmly identified that, and that's why we see them lose so many close games, right? While also winning so many blowout games. Is because when they're pushing the pace and try, exactly.
But when they're down,
Exactly.
But that also comes with the inexperience of having a guy who's, the leader of your team, because the average age of the team is right. They isn't young per se, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of the person who is your leader of the team, him being so young and inexperienced, you look at it like, okay, somebody like him, when you get into these moments, what kind of decisions, right? Based on, you're not tried and true yet, right? So you need to go through a couple of these situations. You have to go through the growing pains and develop that experience. So then you can turn around and say, okay, in these moments, I can see what I can do to be able to make sure that my team is in the best position possible, knowing when to turn it on, knowing when to then be the facilitator, and really just being able to have that mixed bag to be able to control the pace of the game. Could you see them targeting a guy like Donovan Mitchell? Who knows? Maybe that would be some type of fit. Somebody who's a little bit older, a veteran, who's already not content with the team that he has and would like to be on another contender type of team, and not having to be the main facilitated team, being able to just be another offensive piece, but also still there to give them enough of the veteran leadership from that perspective of saying, hey, in these moments, these tight games, I have the experience of saying, okay, this is what we're going to do. And you also know that, and having the confidence of what Halliburton can do in his ability, and also having a guy who's been there before, and not afraid to be able to step up to those key moments.
Yeah. Speaking of a team that, we were talking about a team being tried and true and battle tested. Is this playoff, given how Boston has proven, at least in this Indiana Pacers series, that they can follow through, they can put the foot on the necks, they can come back and end the game, which has been an issue for them, right? Closing games and finishing games, often playing down to the level of their opponents, et cetera, et cetera. Has this playoff run, I'll start with you, Ev, with the Boston Celtics, have you been convinced that they're proven, they're tried and true, and that they're ready for this next step to conquer the NBA Finals?
I think from a team standpoint, they have the fewest amount of weaknesses that they've had in a long time. I think they needed this series to test them, to not necessarily from, do we think we're going to lose to this team? No, but be in some situations where you have to wake up and fight back. You have to wake up and execute down the stretch. They had to stretch their legs some, because as we've said on more than one occasion, they haven't really been tested this calendar year outside of a couple games, right? As far as like big, crunch time situations where the stakes mattered to an extent. So what I'm seeing from this team is, I think, the best chemistry between the two Jays that they've had honestly in their career. But that's to your point. That's to their growth, and going through this in, over the last 7-8 years. I think they're at 102 or 105 playoff games together. Mm-hmm. Right. So, this has been a chemistry that's continued to mold itself. You see the impacts of a guy like a Drew Holiday, who, he reminded us that we have to call him an NBA champion, Drew Holiday, right? Who's done it at this high level of stakes. You're seeing it from a Derek White, who has been the consummate super role player for years. So when you ask, is this the team, the time that they can get over the hump, I think this is the least number of weaknesses that they've had at any point in this run. We're not talking about a team that's too young, 16 or 17. We're not talking about a team that has an erratic, overconfident Marcus Smart, taking maybe the wrong shots. We're not talking about a Jaylen Brown that's doing more than he's capable of doing at the wrong times. We're talking about a fully formed Jaylen Brown at this point, right? So we're seeing levels to this Boston team that we haven't seen. He made a play when he went from left to right in game 4. He almost lost the dribble, but he got it back and made the game-winning pass. He signed the ball Lou on it before he threw the ball to Derek White for that three-pointer.
Fully formed JD, still not fully formed Braids, but I'll leave that alone.
I mean, listen, man, listen.
You meant from right to left because the left is his weak.
Well, no. He kind of fumbled it with the left, got it back to the right.
He's like,
back to the right hand.
He's like,
so his left is still weak. Okay, got it. Okay,
but it was strong enough to get to the game-winning 3-point pass. You got it. He did it. He did it. So I say all that to say, like I've said, fewest weaknesses I've seen from this team throughout this run, with the exception of until KP gets back. You're still draining a lot of minutes from 38-year-old Al Horford. But even then, what he doesn't have physically, he has mentally. So,
So Lou, I've mentioned it. I'd like for you to expound more into it. Is it time for us to call this team the 3 J's? Jalen, Jason, and Drew. I do think that Drew has reminded us in this past series of who he is, like F said, championship Drew. So speak on the last true J's, Jalen and Drew, and their impact and what you've seen for them, and if you think that they'll have enough to propel them to their first NBA championship as.
Man, look, let's talk about.
Thanks, Blazers.
I'm about to. Let's talk
You
about.
need to blame the Bucks and the Knicks first.
Y'all gave Drew Holiday for a bag of chips, a used washer, a used dryer, and a cup of coffee.
We have some detergent in there and fabric softener as well. Okay.
Disgusting franchise.
Look, man,
and not the good stuff either.
Wow,
no name detergent.
The 99-cent one.
Just piling on here.
Dude,
piling on.
Yeah, I see. You talking about like when you go to the laundromat and you put the coins in, you turn.
Exactly. The little powder that comes out, the no-name powder. Yeah, that's stuff.
The off-brand powder.
You in college, you try to get a little bit of
yeah, that stuff.
Look, man, Drew Holiday, I've been a big fan of Drew Holiday, from the time that he was on Philadelphia all the way up to now. So, and to be realistic, man, I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole of the discussion of Defensive Player of the Year, but Drew Holiday has always been somebody who I believe should be in that conversation year in and year out. And look what he did in this series, making key steals to be able to seal the wins. Exactly. Multiple times, key steals to be able to seal this sweep, this victory that Boston had over Indiana. And I mean, immediate impact. But Drew's done that with every team he's been on. He comes in and brings in immediate impact. So absolutely it should be, and Evan made a great point in like, this team really, it is but so many holes that you can poke into what this team has, especially when you get back a healthy Porzingis, then what, but Drew's going to be key in terms of like when you're looking into the finals, whoever they play in the finals, having a key defensive guy who's going to be, because realistically coming in, you can confidently say that he's your cornerstone defensive player, especially upgrading from a guy like Marcus Smart, because I would venture to say that Drew is a better defender than Marcus Smart. And, what he can do on the other side of the ball as well. People forget just because he's a defensive guy doesn't mean that he still can't come in and give you some offensive firepower. So, yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's obviously, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum have been the cornerstones and the guys that have been bringing this team to where it is right now. But 1,000%, man, Drew Holiday has come in, made an immediate impact, and especially if they go on to win this championship, because I believe it's their championship to lose, you can probably look to see Drew Holiday being there for a long time.
It's so crazy to hear you say that. So you confidently take the Boston Celtics over Dallas or the Minnesota Timberwolves.
That is not what team.
Wow.
It's their championship to lose.
I have some last thoughts before we move on. You know who's a Drew Holiday team away? Like, what team is a Drew Holiday away from being a championship caliber team?
The New York Knicks.
No, come
I'm about to say, what, the Los Angeles Lakers?
No, come on, man. The Milwaukee Bucks. You know, they could use a Drew Holiday. Oh, wait. Never mind. Come back, Lou. Come back, Lou. We need you.
Man.
Listen,
man. They want that whole thing back.
Hey, yo. Petty Patty, for real.
Think about it, though. Rewind the tape on the trades that took place last year, right? Think Milwaukee would do what they did? You think they want to do over on giving up Drew for Dame? Essentially? Drew and Grayson Allen, best 3-point percentage shooter in the league?
First of all, Grayson Allen deserves nothing good, so F him. And yes, he deserved to have got traded.
I was about to say, Lou's going to say that. I say they do, but they find a way to keep Drew. If you have an opportunity to get Dame, you don't pass up a top 75 player.
I'm never giving up Drew, bro.
You can get on Grayson Allen, Lou, but he does play defense. So, I mean, they went from Drew Holiday and Grayson Allen
defense.
Yes.
You call that defense?
Grayson Allen plays
injuring
defense.
Players. Yeah, exactly. Let's talk about
sore spot for Lou, man. It's a sore spot, man.
Anyways,
it was a dirty player in college. Okay. Sorry. And it translated into
he was
the
young.
NBA.
He's matured. Listen, they went from the point is they went from that to Dame and Mike and Beasley. Like, what are we doing here? They were getting smoked from the backcourt. Smoked.
Yeah, I never was a big fan of them giving up Drew, but you know, it's funny because Drew is ended up in these positions where teams let him go reluctantly, if it be, and then always regret it. Philadelphia, you think they wouldn't be happy to have Drew Holiday right now? You think New Orleans wouldn't be happy to have Drew Holiday right now? Of course, we see clearly Milwaukee would love to have Drew Holiday right now. But, you know, I mean, you make your bed and you got to sleep in it, man. Like, Drew Holiday is a player I'm not giving up. I don't care. If I'm looking at the expendable list, he's never on it.
Yeah, I would say like I was saying, looking back, I don't think they would have factored Drew if they can get Dame some other way somehow. Go ahead and do it and figure it out. But also you can argue like they weren't doing that bad before Doc either. Like their record, they were, you know, I think Milwaukee has a whole bunch of other issues they need to kind of figure out.
That's fair. They have a string of panic moves that they made.
Yeah.
So that's fair.
Thank you. That is the perfect adjective for it because they seem frantic as a front office. I don't know. Like it's like, oh no, we got to do this. We got to do that. So I don't know what's going on with them, but Drew though has definitely shown and proven his salt in this matchup for me. And, you know, before we go into the West Coast side of things, the one thing that Boston has shown me is that they have the ability to close out when it looks like they could let it go and finish them off in the next game. Because Indy had a couple leads where Boston could have been like, you know what? It is what it is. We'll get them next time, guys. You know, they had a lot of cushion. But for them to have that discipline, which I felt that they have lacked to close out a game, I think Ev has even said it once on air or even in the chat to where when it's crunch time, it's bad. You want to say, let Tatum take the shot. Or you get what I mean? Just because they haven't been that great of a team when it comes to crunch time. So for me, as I said a couple episodes ago, they needed to be tested in some type of way so they can get to that next level. I think what they've shown me is that they have the ability to close out a game that looks like they could possibly not have to win. You know, they didn't have to get the sweep. They could have won it 4-1 multiple times. Yeah. So I give them credit for maturing and having the discipline to get that done.
Another aspect of that is realistically, is everybody thinks about closing out a game from an offensive perspective. When closing out a game also is critical on the defensive end too, right? And somebody like Drew Holiday brings that maturity and that defensive, prowess to say, no, let's make sure that, let's end this. All right. If they give us any window, let's take it. And then we already know what we have on the offensive end, the firepower we have on the offensive end. But what he's been able to bring from the defensive front has been invaluable for Boston. And I mean, and it's what's propelled them and brought them to be able to, in essence, walk to the finals. 4-1, 4-1. Yeah, gentleman sweep, and then a super Swiffer sweep. So, here we are.
Oh, so it's funny you say that. I'll ask one more question. So you posted it in the chat, Ev, in regards to KG taking exception to people basically saying that the red carpet was laid out for these Boston Celtics to make it to the finals. They played injury-riddled teams. They didn't really have too much competition, et cetera, et cetera. Do you think that's the case for them? Do you think they just got the Olay to the NBA finals? They got the alley to the NBA finals this year?
I would say if you look at the past, well, first off, when you talk about NBA champions, nobody ever really remembers or talks about their path or the injuries that took place from other teams that impacted that playoff series, right? That happens every year. If you make it to the finals, you make it to the finals. You won the battle of attrition as well as the battle of talent and chemistry. You look at the past 2 or 3 years, just to begin with, Denver had a fortuitous route to the finals. Golden State had a fortuitous route to the finals. Remember, we're watching a Dallas Mavericks team that beat one of the favorites of that season, that Phoenix Suns team that was coming off of a finals appearance, right? That opened the path for Golden State to get to the finals and then beat Boston, right? So you go through the years, pick a year, you're going to find a fortuitous event, that contributed to a team making it to the finals. So, no, I don't hold it against any team if they're able to make it. You still have to win those games, right? What we're seeing, in addition to teams in a path on one side, you're seeing on the other side, you're seeing young teams that are hitting walls as well. And I shouldn't call it necessarily walls, but going through the battles, the pain, the growing pains that young superstars go through, right, when they're up against veteran teams as well. So, I'll say it, we assume Dallas is going to close out this series, right? Minnesota's not going to come back from 3 down. So what did Dallas do, right? They went through a young OKC team. They went through Anthony Edwards' team, who was only 22 years old, right? So their path to the finals is littered with things as well, right? Should they get there, which I'm gonna say I'm assuming they're going to. So, anybody's path to the finals is what it is. There's a reason only 2 teams get to the finals each year, right? And the other 28 teams are back to the drawing board figuring out how to get better. There's no team that doesn't make it to the finals that says, oh, well, we have everything that we need, right? We don't have to do anything to get better. We're ready to go. We just had this incident take place. Every team's trying to get better in the off season. So if you make it to the finals, you did what you were supposed to do.
100%. I agree with it. I think that basketball is a game of skill, just like it's a game of good fortune as well. You're going to have to get some lucky bounces. Some things are going to have to roll your way. It's a mixture of what people say luck and great skill to get where you're at. And the proof is going to be in the pudding. I don't think the NBA is rigged to the point where these cats don't really have to go out and win this title, except for that one year when the Lakers made it against Sacramento. But we're not going to go back into that sore spot. Portland too. But outside of that, they still got to go out and they have to go win that. So, but let's go to the West Coast, guys. So Minnesota and Dallas, this series was not what I thought it'd be. I thought it was going to be a back and forth kind of slugfest. I win one game, you win one game kind of situation. The Minnesota Timberwolves are down 3-1 right now in the series. And as F said, no team has yet to come back for 0-3 deficit to win a playoff series. So I'm like F calling it, but I still think there's some things to decipher in this series. I'll start with you, Lou. What do you think is happening in terms of Minnesota falling short in this series? What are you seeing that is the glaring kind of they're not doing this or they're missing this issue with Minnesota in this series against Dallas?
I think it's starting before they even get on the court. I think it starts with the coaches. Jason Kidd is already seen. I think Jason Kidd has figured out how to mix it up, understanding how great of a defensive team that Minnesota is, and how to effectively use Luka and Kyrie. And not just that, also I think that also the play of Kyrie and Luka and the path that they had this far is also raised, the confidence of a lot of role players that have been key, like Derrick Jones Jr. I mean, to see how well he's playing. Also, the addition of a guy like PJ Washington, who can just come out and just give you instant offense, right? So, I think that all of this has really started with the coaching, right? So Jason Kidd is schemed well to be able to play against Minnesota. And also, again, like we talk about, like we talked about with Halliburton, Anthony Edwards is the leader of this team, but he's also a young leader, right? So there's a certain level of experience that he doesn't yet have to be able to make some adjustments in how they're playing him, or, how they're either A, trying to deny it. And then realistically, as this game 4 is really where we're seeing Cat start to show what he's supposed to be doing, right? Where Cat is really supposed to be like, okay, cool. I'm the veteran guy here. I may not be the leader of the team, but what am I supposed to do in terms of my key contributions, right? And I think that, the lacking of, I don't think Cat has necessarily played up to what you need to play to be able to be a championship contending team, at least not consistently. So I think those are probably the two biggest things, but I think coaching is really the biggest thing that Dallas has figured out to be able to play well against Minnesota.
Got you. Got to support J Kidd. He's definitely doing his thing out there. I'll give him credit, making some adjustments. Finch isn't a bad guy either. He's making defensive some adjustments as well too. But I don't want to take any points that Ev has coming up as I ask him this next question. Two things. Do you know where we can find Rudy Gobert? I think we've all been kind of looking for him. He's been missing. And I think there's a missing persons report out. I know you have to wait 24 hours typically before you do post one of those. But do you think we need some type of Amber Alert, a Rudy alert in terms of his impact in this series? So if you could help us map out and find out where Rudy is, I think that'd be great. That's the
before you jump in, it's kind of crazy because in all my thoughts of this series so far, and like when you asked that question, as I was thinking about it, Rudy Gobert never even came to mind.
See? So, can't find him. So where is Rudy? That's your first question, Ev. Where is Rudy? And then the second one is, do we need to get an alarm clock? Because he's just showing up now. He's just showing up to the series now. He's making his impact now. So, is it a time management thing? Where's Rudy? Where's Rudy? And what alarm clock do we need to get Anthony Edwards? If you could please enlighten us on.
I love both of these questions. I appreciate you asking them to me. So let's start with Rudy first. If I told any player in the league that over a span of a week and a half or 2 weeks, you were going to deal with the Joker, Luka, and Kyrie Irving, how would any player feel about the next 2 weeks of their life? So I say that in slight defense of Rudy, because in all seriousness, we knew coming into the Denver series that the Joker, he eats a Rudy Gobert. I think we called it last week, barbecue chicken, right? It's a bad matchup for him, but who is Jokic a good matchup for? So in defense, what Jokic does, he's up against three players that neutralize what he's able to do defensively, right? Luka is in the league right now, the best overall finisher / creator for others at the basket. And if he's not number one, it's because Joker's number one, right? So it's just a bad 2 weeks at the office for him. Luka's either going to finish in the paint.
Shout out to the Baltic brothers.
Exactly. He's either going to finish in the paint or he's going to find the right pass for the right lob in the paint. And honestly, there's nothing Rudy can do about that. Oh, and by the way, Luka doesn't like Rudy Gobert. They've got beef going back to the 21 Olympics. So Luka takes it personally when he can cook Rudy Gobert. And when he's not dealing with those two, by the way, he's dealing with the most creative finisher at the rim, maybe in NBA history, definitely in the past 20 years in Kyrie Irving. So from Rudy's standpoint, you know them weeks at the office that you just want this work week to end.
Wait for that. You waiting for that quarter to finish.
You just wait for 5 o'clock Friday. You're going straight to have you a drink.
Straight to happy hour.
Straight to happy hour. And you're not even thinking about working.
Not talking to nobody.
Listen, you don't.
Yeah, you remember that meme of the Popeyes worker sitting outside?
Sitting outside, hands down.
Exactly.
That's Rudy right now. He's tired.
That's Rudy's last 2 weeks, but he's defeated. There's nothing he can do right now with what he's up against.
Man, tired.
I thought he was a 4-time defensive player of the year. What do you mean?
He is a 4-time defensive player of the year, but
I was waiting for that.
But what he's up against right now is just it's hopeless. You know, the slow guard who puts everybody that guards him on his back, and as the pod mamba himself affectionately described it, puts them in jail and then goes to work.
Not everyone.
Who doesn't he?
Vando.
So speaking of folks that we haven't seen in a long, long time.
He asked me who, and I responded accordingly.
I understand. We just haven't. I'm sorry. You know, I'm being agreeable. I am in an agreeable space.
That's right.
So you're right.
Agree with
Vanderbilt probably does, but there's not quite enough. There's not quite enough evidence in big moments for us to include him in this conversation. Right. But I don't disagree with
big moments, small moments. It doesn't matter for Rudy. He gets cooked either way. He can't guard anyone.
Not in these
size,
last two
people
series.
Smaller than him.
Not in these last two series for sure. Now to Anthony Edwards, let's talk about the real key here. So I mentioned it a couple weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, because what's funny, I'm gonna call us to the carpet because the entire sports media landscape has to be called to the carpet because we've all spent the last 2.5 weeks coronating Anthony Edwards as the basically, I don't want to say the chosen one, but you get where I'm getting.
New face of the league.
Exactly. New face. Exactly. So if we're gonna coordinate him, we have to take it when he's not quite living up to it. The point I've had, the nitpick I've had about him, and I've put it on wax, is there's a reason he averages 25 a game in the regular season and not 28, 29 a game in the regular season. It's because of the infatuation with the difficult, right? And it's not just his fault, but it's the infatuation with the difficult, with the ISO, with the create my own that leads to dud-like performances.
Feast of famine.
Yes. We were looking at game 7 and 6 for 24 has a special symbolic place, that you can color coded as it was great. He was still involved, right? But he went 5 for 23 plus one more shot. 5 for 23 isn't good, right? So he's had a collection of dud-like performances now. And the reason is This Minnesota offense has been clunky all season. The 6-7 game stretch that we saw from game 1 versus Phoenix to game 3 versus Denver, that was more so an aberration. That was the absolute apex of what their offenses looked like all year, is what I'm getting at. Their pride and joy has been defense all year. Their offense, especially their fourth quarter offense, has been clunky. And they're up against a team now that has rim protection, which they weren't up against in the previous round. So now it's not as easy for them to get their shots off to get good looks as it was in previous rounds. And shout out to Dallas. Their defensive transformation that we've talked about since the trade deadline continues to come into fruition.
A whole 180. They definitely did that.
They remind me of the 2020 Lakers, honestly.
Oh, Jesus.
They do. Lively and Gafford are doing. I mean, they're doing their thing, man. And Luka and Kyrie doing their thing, but they match with length with the Minnesota Timberwolves. And Jay Kidd on that doing the head coaching job over there. I mean, he was on the same coaching staff with the Lakers. I mean, it's a lot of similarities, at least in my eyes.
Of course.
Yes. Impressive.
Yes, there is some validity to your point. And hey guys, for all the Lakers fans, continue to tune in. Yes, to your point of this with Ant, but realistically, a key to a lot of wins, especially against these bigger teams, as we see in the playoffs, Cat has to show up, right? Doesn't matter if Ant can give you 25, 29, 40. If Cat doesn't show up, it still can't get you over the hump. Cat can't have sub 20-point games, right? And as we've seen this far against Dallas, Cat has had sub 20-point, and them being able to get their one win is when Cat actually did show up. So if you can't put the entire offensive load bearing on Ant, right? Cat has to do his part to be able to get them to be able to have, from an offensive perspective, to have the offensive success. And we've had our reservations. We know Hans loves Cat so very much.
Yes, big fan.
But if Cat doesn't show up, it doesn't matter. So yes, I understand us coronating, and I think, to be realistic, I think Ant already is a kind of already cemented himself as the face of the league, right? The moving forward, right? The new face of the league. But in terms of the success of the Timberwolves for the rest of these playoffs and their games, Cat has to show up.
So I think
he showed up today.
He showed up today. I was gonna say that he gave 25 points today. I'll say this. I don't want to talk about Cat, but Kenny the Jet Smith said this: if they get swept, the Timberwolves, if they get swept, there's got to be new personnel. But if they actually win this game and maybe win a second, then the office could say, you know what, we're close and we're just not there yet. Because one thing we can't forget, I've said it, and we all have seen it during the season and even last year, is that Minnesota is really a good matchup for the Denver Nuggets. It really is. Mm-hmm. And people can poke holes in that win, that game 7, because it wasn't like they beat them 4-2 or 4-1. Yeah. This was a game 7 kind of situation. And people could poke holes and say, you know what, Jamal Murray wasn't 100%, et cetera, et cetera. Porter didn't show up. They could poke those holes to defame the Minnesota Timberwolves, right? So I want to point that out because I think that's such a valid point, because they needed to win this game to validate to us again that they are a legit team. And I think what Lou is saying, even though I didn't want to talk about him, is bring it back, is Cat showing up and saying, hey, I can do this. And I think he needs to show up again and say, hey, I can do this. But also, what needs to be happening in tandem with Cat doing that is Anthony Edwards doing what he did today. If you watch the beginning of that game, what was he doing? It was straight to the hole. It was heads down. It was, I'm going to punish those athletic bigs that you have there and put them in foul trouble. Essentially what Dallas is doing to them, right? What Kyrie has been doing to them for the past 3 games.
Literally.
What Quick Step Luka has been doing to them for, you know, the past 3 games. So to see him and lock in and say, no, this ain't happening like that. I'm going in and I'm not going to give you the step back fadeaways. I'm going to get this game going by going downhill. To me, it was refreshing to see because it validated what we knew he was capable of. And the next step that we can see him taking into, you know, stardom and whatever Anthony Edwards has coming. But for this Minnesota team, like Lou alluded to, he can't just do it. Rudy's gone. Okay. He's been neutralized. Okay. Sorry. He's gone.
He's thinking about happy.
Rudy's in Cancun or in France, so he's gone. Cat has to make a difference. And Anthony Edwards also has to make a difference as well, because if we're going to be honest, Naz Reid has been more consistent than Anthony Edwards.
Yes.
Cat.
Absolutely.
Naz Reid has come off and he's made a lot of difference. He's been more consistent.
Even McDaniels has been giving more. Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's the tricky part right there, because I understand what you're saying by, what Kenny is saying by if you get swept, okay, if you lose, if you get 1 or 2 games in, that's a different scenario.
Mm-hmm.
By the same token, you got Cat, the best shooting big man in NBA history, who shoots 41% from 3, who's shooting 34% from 3 in the playoffs, who continues to make just crazy fouls, who has a team that is figured out his only move outside shooting the 3 is the pump fake drive and try to get the sweeping layup regardless of who's in the paint. Sorry. And I'm a Cat supporter. I apologize. But the point that I'm getting at is,
like you support the Senate,
right? You have Cat making $50+ million when you have Naz Reid doing 90% of what Cat does without 80%. Without 80% of the boneheadedness and making much less money. Imagine what you could do if you turn that $50 million Cat piece into just some other useful pieces and plug Naz Reid into that spot. So if you're Minnesota,
shout out to Jersey, by the way.
I mean, So if you're Minnesota, you got to look at it and say, okay, we know who the guy is on this team. We know who the pieces are around him. Could we use this expensive auxiliary piece to get even better?
Cat for AD, who says no? Go ahead.
Stop. Me. Lakers. Anyone.
Or
I was gonna say you want to go even further, Evan. You want to make even more cap space. Get rid of Rudy and just bring in Bo. You get the same thing.
You hate Rudy so much, right?
Nah, you get more offense with Bo. You get more offense with Bo.
Nah, I mean,
he's 7'3". He barely averages a block a game. What's going on? You can't do anything. You can't protect the rim. You can't protect the perimeter. What can you do?
He's on vacation, man.
You need lobs and force-fed dunks for you to get your stuff going. Getting blocked by guards.
If I'm Minnesota, man, I try to make a deal with Indiana. I'll get y'all Cat. You guys give me some pieces.
I mean, okay, I'll say this.
Evan's like, nah. But nah. You make it for you look like Alonzo Mourning. Alonzo Mourning give like.
There's a Cat trade out there.
That's what I was gonna say. Where's the Cat trade out there?
You got me playing in the trade machine tonight.
In the trade machine, he's gonna be hitting the chat. Like
you'll see some later.
Listen, man, Cat is in Saint Tropez, living his life right now. And
what's his shorty name? Jordan.
Not Cat. Rudy's in Saint Tropez.
Oh,
Cat actually
okay.
showed up today. He showed up today. Yeah, he showed up today. Cat
Because
showed up. I'll give him credit, but he has to. He has to. Like
yes, because you got to keep buying them Birkins, okay? He needs to show
Hey, she's no cheap lady. I 100% agree. You got to give her that lifestyle, sir. Got to give her that lifestyle.
50 mil a year. He's got it. He's fine.
Yeah, like I said, but Nas Reed is more consistent than you. If I'm front office, I'm kind of looking at you like, come on, fam.
Looking at him sideways. 3 years, 42 mil.
To Pod Mamba's credit, as he told us though, bro, you need to expand your game, bro. Get in the block. Get on the block. Get on the block, sir. You're supposed to be the comparative to Anthony Davis, right? Remember when those two, it was them two, they were being compared. Like you're supposed to be that level of that guy. And, come on. Get on this block.
And I know we got to move on, but I'll give him this credit though. He moved off the block to acquiesce for the Rudy Gobert trade. And from an offensive standpoint, to go from being the starting center to embracing being a stretch forward, not every player, especially not every player who thinks they're the primary player, who's getting paid like the primary player, is going to make that sacrifice. And so that's where I've continued to give.
What is this, Uber Eats? You got to forget something in order to do something else? Like,
right.
When you have a guard on you, you don't have to. You need to get your ass on the block and post his ass up. I don't care for this.
Here's where a loose point comes to light. That's a coaching issue. You're seeing that this two big lineup is not effective in this lineup. Sit the Frenchman down, make Cat your big man, get him in the post. Yeah, like you got to do
now you can stretch the floor a bit more. I got some
because at the end of the day, when your game is not well-rounded enough to where you can be on the floor effective on both ends or be a threat at some point, you're going to get put off the floor at some point. I'm sorry. That's just what it is. And I don't think Rudy should take any slight to that. You get what I'm saying? If you do, in this offseason, develop a hook shot, develop other things part of your game. But to me, that highlights a coaching deficit. If I'm seeing that my two bigs are ineffective right now, sit them down, let Cat be your main, right? It gives him more room in the paint to function and work. He can pass. He's shown that. Do you get what I'm saying? So continue to explore this $50 million skill set that you have out there as well too. So, I'm curious. I'm curious to see because his coaching has been criticized in this series a little bit. I'm curious to see what happens, but we'll see. We gotta move on real quick, guys. So we also experienced a tragedy this week. The great Bill Walton, Blazer great Bill Walton passed away from cancer. So we wanted to take our time, last few minutes of this episode, to, really celebrate him and share our condolences with his family. I know I've always appreciated the fact that, he brought a championship to the Blazers. Shout out to that, of course, number one, right? Number one, the red-haired man, doing his thing. But also, when I was really introduced to him was from his color commentary. And I really appreciated his energy that he brought. He was always in a joyous and just a giddy mood. He brought true color to color commentating, not by his wacky outfits, his tie-dye shirts or anything like that. He was just a great time to experience. And I know he'll be sorely missed in the league. So I just wanted to share that. You guys want to share anything before we sign off?
Always brought positivity to everything that you brought. Always, made people's days better and was infectious with that. And, I know there was a time in his life where he was open about it, about contemplating suicide and stuff like that. But, and because with great happiness, there's always that dark side. There's always a yin and yang, right? Like there's always, but with him, he just wanted to always give people their flowers and always wanted to show his love for everyone and everything. And so he will be sorely missed. I mean, same thing with you, Hans. I think the first time I ever saw Bill Wan was in Little Nicky. It was when he was doing the little commentary for the Harlem Globetrotters game. He's like, "My hair is a flame."
I thought you were going to shout out the UCLA.
Well, I mean, yeah, of course. After that, like I got to know who Bill Walton was, and I mean, UCLA, great. I mean, probably one of the best finals national championship game performances ever, 21-22. And the one shot that he missed was an offensive goaltending that they called. So I mean, it really probably should have been 22 for 22. I mean, him, Lou Alcindor in the same team, like that's not so fucking unfair, dude. And you could honestly say he is probably like a top 5, maybe top 3 college player of all time. And if it wasn't for those fucking knee injuries, man, who knows how far he could have gone. He's already a top 75 player with his career kind of cut short.
Yeah. I mean,
he's up there at the big man too. So
for sure. One thing, what I will say, for him is, it's kind of eerie. I know we've talked about this a couple of months. It's kind of eerie that, the dissolution of the Pac-12 and also with him dying and, UCLA being a Pac-12 team. So now it's just like end of an era with, with a great that obviously basketball is definitely going to miss, but definitely going to celebrate him in his memory. So I'm going to be surprised if there's at some point some sort of award that gets named after him in his honor.
Bill, I could see that.
And it's Ferdinand Lou Alcindor, right? It's because and it's my don't forget. Yeah, no, his first name is part, man. Don't forget that first name, man.
Echoing what everyone said, what I appreciated most about Bill Walton was his ability to show how much he loved basketball while also showing that it's just basketball and not to take it so seriously. And there's so much to this world beyond just basketball. And you can hear both of those dualities every single time he spoke and told stories. He was that captivating and that fascinating and hilarious of a storyteller, a true gatekeeper of the game, and willing to tell it in and it's so many different platforms. He'll definitely be missed from that standpoint and many others. And so, like you said, just prayers and condolences to his family, and to all those that he impacted.
And let me know if I'm incorrect in this, civil rights activist, or I know he was very vocal on a lot of like unrest in politics and stuff like that. Like I remember him getting arrested one time in UCLA because he was advocating for the Vietnam War to be stopped and stuff like that. So I mean, he's lived a crazy life.
Definitely a proponent of peace. I think that was his whole.
He's a big hippie.
Yeah,
big hippie.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Yeah, he's an activist for peace. I'll say
better.
that.
Yeah,
I'll say that. Yeah, I was definitely.
By the way, Joker before Joker. I'll say that too.
MVP, Defensive Player of the Year. Six man.
I can see that. I can see
definitely a versatile career. To bounce back from the injuries that cut him short from the peak of his powers, to still contribute in the ways that he did. Impressive.
Yep.
Rest in peace.
Last great Blazer moment. Sorry.
Rest in peace, Bill.
Wow. That's not how we're ending the show. R.I.P. Blazer great, Bill Walton. We'll see you guys next week.
What's up, guys, and thanks for listening. I want you to do 2 things for me right now. 1, give this episode a thumbs up, and 2, be sure to subscribe to our channel. You can also follow us on all the socials at the 3on3 Podcast and send us an email at the 3on3podcast@gmail.com. We appreciate you, and tune in next week.